The breaking point came on a Friday morning. I was standing in line at a hardware store, holding a few cans of paint for the apartment Ethan
Sorry,
and I
ma'am.
had
Your
just
card
moved
is
into.
restricted.
Oh
When the
no, what do I do
cashier swiped
now?
my card, the machine beeped. Declined. I laughed nervously and asked her to try again. Declined. Again. A strange chill moved through my chest. I checked my phone, and the message on my banking app hit like a slap. Account restricted. I called Ethan immediately. He answered after the first ring. Calm. Too calm. I canceled it, he said. You spend too much. You don't need that kind of financial stress. For a moment, I thought he was joking. Then I heard the sound of his cup clink against glass, the slow exhale of a man completely unbothered by what he'd just done. My voice trembled, not from anger, but disbelief. Ethan, that's our account. That's my money too. He sighed, as if I were a child misunderstanding something obvious. Vivian, everything you have is because of me. Right there, in the middle of that hardware store, surrounded by strangers, I realized the truth. He didn't see me as a partner. He saw me as a possession. And that moment wasn't the beginning of his betrayal. It was the confirmation that it had already begun long before the card stopped working. My name is Vivian Cole, and I never thought I'd become the villain in my own love story. I'm a petite woman, what people politely call a dwarf, and for most of my life I've had to work twice as hard to be seen as capable, as beautiful, as enough. Everyone said Ethan and I looked perfect together. He was the tall, polished type, always in control, with that smooth charm people mistake for confidence. I was the petite one, quiet, careful, and endlessly accommodating. They called it balance. But what they didn't know was that perfection was just the costume our marriage wore. Ethan knew how to fill a room. He never entered, he arrived. At parties, he'd hold my hand like I was his prized possession. Never too tight, just enough to remind me where I belonged. And I believed it meant love. For years I did. I built my world around his voice, his plans, his dreams. My only mistake was not realizing I was just a piece of the image he was selling to the world. We met at a charity gala downtown. He walked in wearing confidence like a tailored suit, and when he spoke to me, he said, "You don't look like you belong here." Somehow, it sounded like a compliment. Maybe I wanted it to. Maybe that's where the trap began, in the way he made me feel seen and small at the same time. Back then, Ethan wasn't rich, but he had a gift. He knew how to look rich. Everything about him screamed success. The watches, the dinners, the weekend trips. It was all borrowed, all staged. But I didn't see that then. I told myself he was ambitious, that one day all his talk about our empire would come true. And when it did, at least on the surface, I felt proud. His company grew fast, and so did his ego. He started introducing me not as my wife, but as the one who keeps me grounded. It sounded sweet, but it was just another script line in his performance. I was the decoration that made him look stable, the normal to his glamour. I still remember our wedding, the laughter, the speeches, the way his father toasted, "You've always liked small things, Ethan. Looks like you married one." The guests laughed, and Ethan squeezed my hand, whispering, "Ignore it." But I couldn't. Those words stuck, quiet but sharp, like glass under skin. Months later, the cracks appeared. Ethan's world was full of eyes. Investors, friends, social climbers. I started noticing how often he'd correct me, how he'd mock my simple taste. And then came the first reveal. One night, I sat beside him at a dinner with his business circle. A woman across the table said, "Ethan told us he had to upgrade your wardrobe to match his lifestyle." She laughed, sipping her wine. Everyone joined in, except me. I smiled, even as my hand trembled under the tablecloth. That night, I didn't cry.
I just sat in the car in silence, staring at the city lights, wondering how I became someone people laughed about. When we got home, I asked him about it. He brushed my cheek and said, "People envy what we have. Don't overthink it." Then he went to bed. But I couldn't sleep. Something told me to check his laptop, and for the first time, I listened to my instincts. Everything was there: our finances, his projects, travel records, all under his name. My name didn't appear anywhere. And then I saw it: a folder labeled Family Adjustment. Inside, voice recordings. I pressed play. Ethan's voice filled the room, calm and casual. "If she ever becomes a liability, I know exactly how to cut her off." I sat frozen. The glow of the screen painted my face pale blue. That was the moment I realized love wasn't my protection, it was my disguise.
Ethan had a way of pretending nothing was wrong. His smile could silence suspicion. His calm tone could rewrite any truth. For weeks after that night, I convinced myself I had misunderstood. Maybe that recording wasn't about me. Maybe I was just exhausted. But the problem with denial is that it doesn't heal you. It delays the moment the truth catches up. The first sign came at a dinner party he hosted for his investors. The air was thick with money, expensive colognes, tailored suits, laughter that sounded rehearsed. I stood beside Ethan, smiling like I belonged there, until one of his friends said, "So, you're the lucky one he's rebranding with." I blinked, confused. Rebranding? The man chuckled. "Oh, come on, Ethan's next project, the one with someone prettier? He's been talking about it for weeks." The table laughed. Ethan's smile didn't falter, but I saw his fingers tighten around his glass. "Ignore them," he said softly, but his tone was too sharp, too rehearsed. That night, I couldn't shake a feeling that something was moving beneath the surface, something planned. I started watching him more carefully. Every late-night call, every change of password, every moment he walked into another room just to answer a message. At first, I thought maybe it was work. But then I noticed the pattern. Every time his phone lit up, he smiled in a way I hadn't seen in months. Gentle, amused, alive. He used to smile at me that way. One night I walked past the home office and heard his voice. Low, almost affectionate. "No, she doesn't suspect anything. I just need more time. She's too trusting." I stopped breathing. The room went quiet. He must have heard something, the soft creak of the hallway floor, because he ended the call abruptly and came out pretending to stretch. "You're still up?" "I couldn't sleep," I said, my voice thin. He smiled, kissed my forehead, and said, "You worry too much, Vivian. That's your problem." I waited until he went to bed, then checked his call log. The number wasn't saved, just digits, but I memorized them anyway. Days passed like that, silent performances of normalcy. He'd bring me flowers in the morning, then disappear for meetings that didn't exist. He'd post pictures of us online, captions full of affection, while I sat at home scrolling through the comments, realizing half the world saw a love story that wasn't real. One evening I caught his sister whispering to him outside the house. She said, "You can't keep this secret forever. If she finds out before you're ready, everything falls apart." He gave her a look I'll never forget. Part warning, part arrogance. "Relax. She'll never see it coming." The words echoed through the doorway like a prophecy. That was the night something inside me shifted. I went upstairs, took my phone, and started recording every word, every call, every lie. I didn't know what I would do with the evidence yet, but I knew one thing for certain. He was planning my downfall, and I wasn't going to let him finish the script.
If there's one thing Ethan mastered better than business, it was presentation. Every photo, every post, every quote about our perfect marriage looked flawless. Our lives online were a filtered fantasy, a highlight reel of smiles that never reached our eyes. But one morning, while scrolling through his social feed, I saw something that made my chest tighten. A photo of Ethan at a charity gala, standing beside my younger sister, Melissa. My name wasn't tagged. Hers was. At first, I thought it was a mistake. She'd attended with us before, sometimes as a +1, when Ethan wanted the table to look balanced. But lately, her presence had shifted. She wasn't beside me anymore. She was beside him. Under the photo, a comment read, "You two look perfect together." Ethan had liked it. The next few weeks turned into a cruel performance. Every family dinner, every event, every gathering, I became invisible in my own marriage. My mother would fuss over Ethan and Melissa's shared interests, laughing about their taste in travel and music. My father would joke, they could pass for twins, while I sat at the table, smiling through the sting. At one dinner, I caught Melissa resting her hand on Ethan's arm as they laughed over a private joke. The room tilted slightly. My pulse quickened, but I said nothing. Because that's what polite women do. They protect peace, even when it's killing them. Later that night, as I helped clear the dishes, my mother whispered, "Don't be so sensitive, Vivian. It's just how your sister is. Warm, friendly." "Too warm," I muttered under my breath. She gave me a look that shut me down instantly. I swallowed every word. The silence that followed wasn't calm. It was suffocating. Every laugh between them, every shared glance across a table, it chipped away at something inside me. Still, I stayed quiet because walking away would make me the problem. But Ethan's posts grew bolder. A photo of Melissa holding a champagne glass, a story captioned, "When inspiration strikes, surround yourself with brilliance." She stood right beside him. I wasn't even in the frame. That night, I sat on the couch and scrolled through comment after comment. They have such chemistry, beautiful couple goals, and then one that cut deeper than the rest. His wife must be proud. Proud. I shut my phone, my throat burning. The next morning, I decided to test something. I went out to buy paint supplies, something simple, something that would distract me. At the checkout, I handed the cashier my card. Declined. I tried again. Declined. The cashier smiled awkwardly. Maybe try another card. I checked my phone, hands trembling. My account was restricted. I called Ethan immediately. He didn't even sound surprised. "I canceled it," he said casually. "You spend too much, you don't need financial stress." "But that's my money too," I whispered. He laughed softly, not cruelly, just dismissively. "Vivian, everything you have is because of me." And that's when I knew. The man who once claimed I was his world had just turned me into his burden. The morning after Ethan froze my account, I sat at the kitchen counter staring at my phone. The notification still glowed across the screen. Account restricted, contact your financial administrator. Administrator, not husband. Administrator. The word alone made me feel like a guest in my own life. I wanted to believe him when he said it was temporary. Just a budgeting mix-up, he'd smiled, kissing the top of my head. "Don't overthink it, baby." But his tone was too soft, too deliberate, like a man soothing a child before locking the door behind her. That afternoon, I logged into our joint account from my laptop. The balance was shockingly low. Not gone, but missing pieces. Like someone had scooped money out with careful precision. Then I saw it. A string of new luxury purchases. Designer watches, a hotel suite in Miami, 2 tickets to a private gala, all under his name, none shared. Shock turned into disbelief. I scrolled further and the disbelief into anger. Ethan wasn't being cautious. He was building a separate life with my resources. My throat tightened, but I kept scrolling until the numbers blurred. Where was the money going? For a moment, I just sat there listening to the sound of the refrigerator hum, the house so still it almost mocked me. Then, for the first time, something sharper than fear took root. Resolve. I opened a new tab and searched for online savings accounts. If Ethan could manipulate control, I could reclaim a fraction of it, quietly, strategically.
I created a hidden account under my maiden name, transferred what little I could from my business funds. Not much, but enough to survive. Each click felt like inhaling again after months underwater. That night, Ethan came home whistling. He set down a shopping bag on the counter. Inside, a silk tie, a designer cologne, and a receipt that didn't belong to our finances. When he caught me looking, he grinned. "Clients expect appearances," he said. "You wouldn't understand." The words stung more than he realized, because he was right. I didn't understand how someone could turn cruelty into routine. When he left the room, I picked up the receipt again. The purchase had been made with a new credit card, one I'd never seen before. It wasn't under our joint account. The pieces were rearranging themselves fast now. The secrecy, the missing funds, the phone calls. Hours later, as I sat working in the dim light of my laptop, a new notification appeared in my inbox. An automated alert. My pulse quickened as I opened it. Transfer confirmation. Amount $7,500. From Ethan West to Melissa King. For a second, my mind went blank. Then the reality hit like ice. He wasn't just drifting from me emotionally, he was funding my replacement.
The next morning, I drove straight to my parents' house. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that the leather squeaked. My heart wasn't racing from fear, it was disbelief. Disbelief that the people who raised me could be silent while my life unraveled in public. When I arrived, my mother was arranging flowers in the living room. My father sat in his usual armchair, half hidden behind the morning paper. They looked ordinary, like they hadn't just watched their eldest daughter's marriage dissolve online. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, "when was the last time you spoke to Ethan?" She froze, her hands hovering over the vase. My father lowered his paper, the tension in the room suddenly thick enough to choke on. "Why are you asking that?" my mother said. "Because he transferred $7,500 to Melissa yesterday," I said, stepping closer. "And because I think you knew this was happening long before I did." Her silence told me everything before her words did. "Vivian," she started gently, "you have to understand, Ethan came to us weeks ago. He was confused. He said you were struggling, that you weren't supporting his goals. He thought maybe things would be better if..." "If what?" I asked, my voice cracking. "If he married my sister instead?" My father's jaw tightened. "He's a good man, Vivian, practical. He wants a family that fits the world he's in now. Your sister, she understands that life better than you." I stared at them, stunned. "You mean she understands the money?" No one spoke. The only sound was the soft ticking of the clock on the mantel, steady, merciless, like it was counting down to something final. My mother set the flowers down and finally met my eyes. "He's offering stability, Vivian. Don't throw everything away just to prove a point." A laugh escaped me, sharp, bitter, too loud for the quiet house. "A point? He canceled my credit cards, humiliated me, and you call that stability?" My father stood up, voice firm. "Lower your tone. You've always been emotional. Maybe this is why he..." "Don't," I warned, tears already threatening. "Don't finish that sentence." There it was again, that old ache of being the lesser daughter, the one who wasn't delicate enough, tall enough, charming enough. I'd spent years funding their comfort, paying their debts, helping my sister through school, and still I was the disposable one. As I turned to leave, my mother said softly, "Vivian, don't make this ugly." I stopped at the doorway and looked back at her, the woman who taught me grace, now defending betrayal. It was ugly long before I got here. Outside, the air was cold enough to sting my skin. I sat in my car, hands trembling, breath shallow. For a moment, I almost called Ethan, almost begged for the truth I already knew, but my phone buzzed before I could. A message from my friend, Mia. Photo attachment. I opened it. My stomach dropped. Ethan and Melissa, standing side by side in a jewelry store, smiling. The caption beneath the picture read, "Private appointment, picking out rings."
I stared at it for what felt like hours, numbness spreading through my chest until it turned into something colder. Rage. That was the moment the heartbreak ended, and the revenge began.
For days, I couldn't feel anything. Not anger, not heartbreak, not even disbelief anymore. Just silence. The kind that comes when pain has burned itself out and left only clarity behind. I stopped crying. I stopped asking why. And in that stillness, I started planning. Ethan had spent years turning appearances into power, selling the illusion of wealth to people desperate to be near it. But illusions crack under light, and I was ready to flip the switch. Late one night, I logged into his old cloud drive. Months ago, he'd given me temporary access to help with accounting. He must have forgotten to revoke it. Inside were folders upon folders, invoices, fake balance sheets, investment letters with digital signatures. The empire he built wasn't made of money, it was smoke and ego. The moment of revelation didn't bring satisfaction, it brought focus. Every forged number, every false report, every unpaid tax bill was right there in front of me. He wasn't just manipulative, he was reckless. I copied everything to a flash drive, then created a new anonymous email. No threats, no message, just a clean data dump sent directly to his biggest investor. 23 attachments, one truth. When I hit send, my hands shook, not from fear, but from power I hadn't felt in years. For the first time, I wasn't the silent wife defending his reputation. I was the one rewriting the story. The next morning, his world began to collapse. I watched from my window as headlines flickered across finance blogs. Ethan West under scrutiny for false disclosures. His phone started ringing nonstop. Investors demanded answers. His charm cracked under pressure. By evening, I received a text from an unknown number. "You think you're smarter than me?" I deleted it instantly, but a small, cold thrill ran through me. He was panicking. Over the next few days, I stayed quiet, almost invisible. I went to work. I smiled when people asked if I was okay. I answered no calls from unknown numbers. Because the truth was, I wasn't hiding. I was watching. But power comes with risk. Every move I made was traceable if he looked hard enough. One mistake, one digital footprint, and he'd know it was me. That night, as I sat in my apartment scrolling through updates on his downfall, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed down the hall. They stopped right outside my door. My heart pounded once, then again louder. A knock, then another. Harder. I froze, staring at the handle. "Vivian." Ethan's voice called from the other side. Low, calm, but shaking beneath the surface. "Open the door." I didn't move. He exhaled sharply. "You ruined everything. Now you'll pay." The hallway fell silent, but the echo of his words stayed. A promise, not a threat. And in that moment, I realized something chilling. Revenge isn't about who strikes first. It's about who's still standing when the smoke clears. The night he came back, the city felt unnaturally quiet, the kind of silence that hums just before a storm. I sat in the living room with every light on, my hands folded in my lap, waiting. No fear this time, just focus. The door burst open. Ethan stepped in, face pale, eyes wild. The mask was gone. He looked smaller now, like a man cornered by the truth he built himself into. "You did this," he hissed. "You destroyed me." I stood slowly, my voice even. "No, Ethan. You destroyed yourself. I just stopped cleaning up after you." He laughed bitterly, pacing like a man trying to find his footing in sinking sand. "You think you're safe? Those investors will come after you too. You were part of it." "Not anymore," I said, holding his gaze. "I transferred every joint fund months ago, before you started playing house with my sister. It's all in a trust under my name." He froze. For a moment, his expression faltered between rage and disbelief. "You're lying." "Am I?" I walked to the counter and slid a single envelope toward him. Legal papers, neatly sealed. "Everything you built with my name attached is gone. I made sure of it." He opened the envelope, hands trembling. The color drained from his face as he read the first line. Trust ownership transfer, Vivian West. I continued quietly. You were too busy chasing your next version of perfect to notice the woman beside you was planning her exit. His voice cracked. You can't just walk away from this. I already did, and this time, I'm not walking away empty-handed. For a moment, the room was silent except for the ticking of the clock on the wall, rhythmic, final. He looked around, like maybe the furniture could remember the man he used to be. Then his anger returned, sharp and wild. I'll rebuild, he said through clenched teeth. I'll make it bigger than before. You'll regret this. I smiled, not with cruelty, but with calm certainty. You won't rebuild anything. You've spent your last dollar pretending to be someone important, and you traded your integrity for applause. He flinched, as if the words hit harder than any weapon could. By morning, he was gone. No calls, no apologies, just silence. 3 weeks later, the headlines appeared everywhere. Ethan West marries his ex-wife's sister, luxury brand in collapse. The article included a photo, Ethan at the courthouse steps beside Melissa, his smile stretched thin, hollow. I sat by my window, coffee in hand, watching sunlight crawl across the city skyline. My lawyer's voice echoed faintly from a voicemail I hadn't deleted. Divorce finalized. You're free, Vivian. For a long time, I said nothing. Then, softly, almost to myself, I whispered, Justice spends quietly. People think revenge is about anger, but it's not. It's about clarity, the quiet moment when you finally see who someone really is and decide they'll never get to write your story again. Ethan thought power came from money, from image, from control. But real power? It's the calm that comes after walking through fire and realizing you're still standing. If you've ever been underestimated, betrayed, or made to feel small just because someone thought they could control you, remember this: silence is not weakness, it's preparation. And when your peace finally cost them their comfort, that's not revenge, that's justice. So, if you stayed with me till this point, tell me in the comments, what would you have done in Vivian's place? I go through every comment myself, and your stories always remind me none of us walk alone. Don't forget to subscribe and keep your notifications on, because stories like this, stories of strength, betrayal, and quiet redemption, they're just getting started here on Petite Revenge.